Hey, baby, I hear those blues a-calling. It's time for the Frasier on Frasier podcast. Hello and welcome. Once again, it is I, your host, Adam Frasier. With me, as always, is Mr. Wes Corwin.
Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So we are talking about, on this episode, Season 1, Episode 19 of Frasier, Give Him the Chair.
Give him the one where this is the one where Bulldog is given the death channel. He all of his crimes he's killed for.
It's probably my favorite episode of this season.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a dark one. It's an examination on whether the death penalty is okay, and the answer is apparently a resounding yes.
So let's talk about what the episode's actually about.
No, sure, of course.
It's okay. So it's a pretty classic setup. We got Frasier losing his father's chair, his favorite chair, his recliner, which we've known for. It was established in the very first episode that Frasier hates this recliner. It's his dad's favorite recliner.
Mm-hmm.
And in this episode, we're gonna see what happens when Frasier loses it.
Exactly.
So we start off in KSAL. Frasier's doing a show.
Mm-hmm.
He's introducing his guest, a author, a doctor,
Dr. Helmut Brugge, who's German, and he's a professor from the University of Washington, and he is played, of course, by Malcolm McDowell.
You can kind of hear it too in the voice.
He's doing a German accent, but once I'm not going to put on airs. I actually didn't recognize it until I read the credits, but the second I did,
me neither. Yeah,
now I can't hear it. It's a very good performance by Malcolm McDowell, who you might know from such classics as Caligula and Home Alone 5.
Those are his best films.
Those are his very, very best films.
So yeah, we have our guests for the episode. Well, no, we have two guests this episode.
Right.
We'll get into the second one, but so we've got Frasier doing his interview with Brugge, but Brugge is more interested. He's there to talk about his book, The Menopausal Male, which Frasier read and is apparently very impressed with. So he's very excited to have this very smart doctor on his show.
And the theme that apparently the doctor has written about is that later in life, when a woman is in her menopausal state, she suddenly might get more into reproduction. Apparently men also, but Dr. Brugge can't concentrate long enough to talk about these findings of his because he really wants to ask Roz out to a movie or perhaps a bite to eat.
Right, yeah. He's there mostly. Frasier thinks he's there to talk about his book. Brugge, however, is there mostly to hit on Roz.
Right. Entirely to hit on Roz.
Right.
He does.
So it's a very short interview. It's not even. I don't even think you really classify it as an interview.
No, absolutely not. Apparently, Brugge's been listening to the show for a while, mostly to disagree with Frasier and to apparently just listen to Roz's voice, I guess, because immediately he wants to ask out Roz before even the pretense of a discussion can begin.
Right. Yeah, we've established that it seems like a lot of people in the psychiatry community don't agree with Frasier's analyses in his shows, and it maybe it's because Frasier's a terrible psychiatrist. We don't know.
Yeah. Which is interesting because he seems to vibe at least a little bit with Niles in their back and forth, but it might just be because they overlap and other psychiatrists would disagree with both Frasier and Niles in equal measure.
Right, they're sort of the black sheep of the community.
Maybe, yeah.
So after that whole scene plays no purpose in the larger episode.
Virtually none.
It's really just there just to make us laugh and be a little guest spot for Malcolm McDowell.
Just to kind of put Malcolm McDowell in the episode, who I'm surprised you haven't mentioned was in Star Trek Generations, which is a Star Trek film.
He was. he was the bad guy. He killed Captain Kirk.
Yes.
Oh, that was a movie.
That was a film. He was an actor in that film.
Yeah. I as much as I like Star Trek, there aren't really. I have a trouble saying that there are really any good Star Trek movies. Like, some of them are better than others, but they're all kind of varying degrees of crap.
I mean, the most famously good one is Wrath of Khan.
Right, which is good.
Okay.
It's not. I don't think it's. I haven't seen it in a while, so
Okay.
maybe it still holds up. So going back to the show, I mean, Generations though is kind of a mess.
Yeah. Okay.
I will say that.
It is. It is, in fact.
It's the one where Data gets the emotion chip.
Yes.
And he goes crazy.
Right. And Kirk gets killed by a bridge. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, he was on a bridge and it collapses, and he just dies immediately after the very bare minimum of screen time, so they could say, "Oh look, Captain Kirk's in this."
Mm-hmm.
And they're together. It's Picard and Kirk together.
Hooray! Oh man, they're on a bridge. Oh, Kirk is. Well, and Picard's burying him in a makeshift grave, unloved.
Yeah. It's God, the Next Generation movies are not great.
Yep.
And that's all I'll say about that for now.
Sure.
So we've got Frasier's apartment. Niles is visiting. Daphne answers the door. Niles is there because he's bought some jewelry from Maris.
Right.
And he's hoping to stash it there as a surprise until her birthday arrives. He's going to stash it there so she can't find it.
But of course, Daphne asks if she can have a peek. At which point, Niles sort of carelessly opens the case and then Hux, in a very impressive. Again, David Hyde Pierce is very good at physical comedy. Just sort of knows the exact amount of force to get the emerald jewelry out of the case and into Daphne's hand. Very impressive. But also kind of betraying that, like, this is a little bit of another more showmanship and pageantry in his crush of Daphne.
Right. He of course helps Daphne, try it on because of course he would, and it falls down her dress. So, of course, she's trying to reach down her dress to get it, and it's at that exact moment that Frasier enters the apartment. Sees this scene.
It's not what it looks like, Frasier. I swear. Yeah. The old sitcom. Whoa. Yeah, no. Yeah.
So, and we get a pretty funny line. It's like, oh, yeah, I was here,
I'm sure Maris
I needed some place to hide them for Maris's birthday, and Frasier's like, emeralds, well...
can I see it?
And then he's like, no, it's down my blouse, and it's like, oh, well, Maris will never think of looking for it there.
Yep.
So Daphne goes to get the emeralds.
Yes.
She leaves the scene. Niles... I think he helps himself to some sherry or something.
Right. He pops in. He's making himself at home. Martin is like, why are you here? And then Niles is like, it's Maris' birthday, hiding her gift here. Martin says something about like, oh, I need to get her something. I just came from the hardware store. I saw a great looking Ratchet set, which I believe is so here's the thing. At first I thought the joke was ahead of its time, because I don't think the term like ratchet has been invented by the youth at this point in 1994. I believe he's referring to this plastic surgery based on Frasier's comment, as if there's anything left on her that needs tightening, because liposuction and tightening of the face and all that. I think is that the joke? Is that I
kind of read it as just like, oh, what's a gift that Maris would never have any use for? A ratchet set.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, that's the joke. That's how I interpret it, at least. But Frasier does comment, yeah, as if there's anything left on her that needs tightening.
Yeah. I would love to see like a Fuller House. I would love to see like Frasier, and I would love to see Martin like an episode where he joins TikTok and dabs and calls.
That's the reboot.
Calls certain hoes ratchet. I feel like that would get the kids. That would get the kids on board with the Frasier.
I agree to have a crossover with Home Improvement where he goes on Tool Time with Tin the Tool Man Taylor.
I think that'd be something. I think that'd be really something.
Yeah, we need to go back in time and make that happen.
I want it.
So apparently Martin went to the hardware store and all he bought was a roll of duct tape.
Specifically for his couch, to put duct tape on his couch.
His chair.
Yeah, his love seat, chair, his recliner, I guess is the most
recliner.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's trying to patch up one of the holes in there that's forming. There's a rip. You got to get them before they look terrible, which is ironic because it already looks like hell.
It's already got strips of duct tape and it's being held
all
together.
over it.
It's not a good looking chair, but Martin has a sentimental thing about it that we'll get into.
So this prompts Frasier and Niles to have a discussion about the chair.
Right.
Frasier, of course, doesn't want it in his apartment because it ruins the whole flow of his apartment. Niles brings up the point that, initially the reason for the chair being there was because it was something that, made Martin feel comfortable because he moved in with Frasier. So with any kind of security object, there is maybe a time where you should take it away. You need to kind of wean him off of it, so to speak.
Yes.
So this gives Frasier sort of the excuse, if I'm getting rid of it, if I get rid of the chair, I'm really doing it for my father. I'm not doing it for me.
Of course.
Which that's the kind of logic that he needs, I guess, to justify.
It's definitely not a selfish thing to get rid of this chair he hates looking at. Right.
It's completely it's meant to be. It's therapy.
Of course.
I'm a therapist.
That's me. That's who I
am. So we go to a furniture store, or Sharper Image. I don't know what it is. And Frasier and Niles are both there. They're marveling at all the various tacky, pieces of furniture that they got there. Niles makes the comment that one of the chairs looks like they upholstered the chair using golf pants. So they run into a salesman who I think he was also in several. The salesman character, the actor playing him, I think he was also in several Star Trek series.
His name is James Green with an E at the end.
Right. He was in. I know he was in Deep Space Nine. He played a Bajoran Vedic, I think.
You might know him from Patch Adams. You might know him from Road to Perdition. And those are all the movies. Oh, he was in Ghost Story, which is a film that I recognize the name of, but nothing else about it.
It's okay. So the salesman, he doesn't really seem that he doesn't seem very interested in selling him a chair.
Right.
He kind of gives them the brush off. But he does show them several chairs, and he shows them a lazy guy, which is sort of a
take on the Lazy Boy, which I guess
right.
Can you not say I guess you don't want to, if you're CBS, you don't want to just give away references to the Lazy Boy. You need to replace it with something similar.
Or at least if you're gonna maybe you don't want to disparage the Lazy Boy, because Frasier makes the comment, "Oh, I wonder what they call the deluxe model, the hopeless slack ass."
Yeah, which is slack ass a term that people use?
I've heard it once in another show, which they use it. I think they've said it before on does anybody remember the show Syphil and Ollie? It was MTV. It was late '90s, early 2000s. It was two puppets. One of them was voiced by Liam Lynch.
Yeah.
And they just talked and did funny skits. It was a great show, and I still love it.
You've definitely brought this up before. Not on the podcast, but you've definitely brought up Syphil and Ollie many times.
It's an amazing show. It's one of my favorites, and it's one of those shows that MTV canceled way before they should have. But yes, that's the only place I can remember hearing the term slackass before.
I see. Apparently, it is a portmanteau of slacker and jackass.
Yeah.
I could see that.
And it does have a certain ring to it.
Okay.
I like using it.
All right.
So finally, he shows him a particular recliner. It's got Swedish massage. And, Frasier's like, oh, it won't, this wouldn't look hideous in my living room. So Niles sits in the chair, and the salesman demonstrates the Swedish massage feature. And Niles is like, oh my gosh, I never knew a chair could be this satisfying.
And it's sort of, so here's an interesting thing. We know from Niles that he's a little dissatisfied in his current relationship with Maris, and he's pursuing that. At first, it's presented as if Daphne is everything that Niles sort of values in a potential part. Like, he fetishizes British women, and she's a little bit more bubbly, a little bit more outgoing, and Maris can't seem to leave the house most of the time, frequently trapped under a series of coats.
Right.
So this is the first time we've seen Niles express affection for anything else besides Daphne or Maris, inanimate object or otherwise, and he does seem to be very into the physical affection provided by the rotating different mechanics of this shiatsu massage couch.
And this is kind of the running joke in this episode, is that yes, this is a very sensual massage that it gives.
There's a weird, people make a weird face when they sit in this couch.
Yeah, but it's apparently very, very nice, and Frazier, he decides to buy it. So we get to the apartment. It's Frazier and Daphne. They're trying out Frazier's showing the chair to Daphne. Daphne is Eddie's freaking out.
Yeah.
Right. Eddie has seen that Frazier has removed Martin's chair, and Eddie is barking because he thinks that, Frazier has killed Martin.
And subsequently has thrown away his chair. Because obviously, to Eddie, the only way the chair would be replaced is if Martin was dead.
Right.
Of course.
So, and Frazier, says, if I had stuck Dad's feet into a bucket of cement and thrown him into the Puget Sound, you would have been the tiny little splash that followed him. So he would have killed Eddie too.
He would have.
If he ever wanted to actually murder his husband, or his father.
His father.
He would have definitely killed Eddie as well.
A fun sardonic quip about patricide to a dog. So
yeah.
Frazier clearly getting the wits in today.
So there's a ring at the door. Frazier opens it, and it's Leo.
Who I believe we've referenced before. Is this the first time we've seen him?
I don't know if we've referenced him. I know we've referenced other handymen in the building. I think this is the first time we're seeing Leo, though. And Leo is one of those characters who I think they tried to make him a thing, but he never really became a thing. I think he has like this and one other appearance. So Leo isn't long for this show, unfortunately.
No.
But he is here, and he's a slack ass, basically. He
is yes, I'm looking at this now. He is only in this one episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's the building sort of lackey. He's brought Frasier's new chair in. He's taken away the old one to the storage unit in that also is in Frasier's apartment. And he's brought up the new chair. He's putting it. He's knocking stuff over in Frasier's apartment. He's just kind of a goof, kind of a screw up.
Yep.
And not the brightest bulb.
Clearly, so here's an interesting thing about the way Leo, and one thing I will say is this episode is very tightly written. It is very efficient in terms of jokes, in terms of like bam, 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 laugh every 15, 20 seconds. But it is interesting, especially in the way Leo is written, because he's written like a boob, like a fool, and then he seems briefly self-aware only to benefit the comedy, like the thing where his second to last line, as I'm finding out in the entire series for the Leo character, is him listing how he's being ordered around. Dump the chair. What am I, the building lackey? And then Frazier says yes, and he goes okay. It's interesting. It's surprising that he would have a grasp of the language and vocabulary. I wouldn't think he'd be the lackey. I think he'd just be like, stop ordering me, based on the other comments, because he has a very, especially compared to everybody else, he has a very simple patois up until that point.
Well, he's of course he's got the really long hair. He's got sort of the plaid, he's kind of the rocker look.
He is in fact the real actor, who I don't know if we said his name already. Phil Buckman is famous for being in the bands Filter and Fuel. So not like a typecast thing. He is a musician. He was a big part of the LA music scene. He started out.
Yeah, he looks like he plays the bass.
He's a bassist. He was in the band.
Oh, there you go.
Tribal Sex Cult and other projects. Helicopter. Fine. Kill the Complex.
Are you reading something right now? Are you just saying things?
The Snow. Texture. One Side Zero, but it's all.
What is this?
These are all bands that Phil Buckman was in. Volume, but starting with a lowercase v and OLUM are capitalized, and the last E is lowercase. The Imposters in all capital letters. Go Betty Go, which has a Wikipedia. This is the first of his bands that has had a Wikipedia page. And he was the former bassist.
The most famous one, Go Betty Go, is classic.
And he was also in Filter, and he was the bassist for Petty Cash, which is a Tom Petty, Johnny Cash tribute band.
Okay. So, and he's in this one episode of Frasier.
Yes. He was also, look, I don't want to turn this into the Phil Buckman podcast, but I do feel like it's worth mentioning. He was also, I lost it. I thought he was in, he's been in a lot of sitcoms. He was also in Wings, which is famous for being another thing that Frasier was in. Frasier was in Wings, wasn't he? He was in one episode.
Well, he was one episode of Wings, and the creators of Frasier worked on Wings.
Okay, so that's that. He was also in an episode of King of the Hill, but I'm done.
Okay. He was in an episode of Boy Meets World.
He was. If I may provide, he was in Rocket Power for Nickelodeon fans listening. And if you're into terrible video games, he was also in Spider-Man 3 as additional voices.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Let's keep it going. Let's keep it rolling.
I wonder how much of that's actually accurate, though.
Oh, his IMDb page, or what are we talking about?
I mean, because it also says he was also in an episode of Tim and Eric Awesome Show.
I mean, he could have been in an episode of Tim. Why do you think he wouldn't have been?
I don't know. He was. I don't know. I just know IMDb isn't always correct.
Oh, okay.
But anyway. So in the episode, Leo's there. He delivers the chair. Frasier is showing it off to Daphne. Daphne, of course, is also very taken aback by the shiatsu massage feature.
Taken in more ways than one, and aback in more ways than one.
Yes.
Right.
So, and she says it's almost enough to make her give up a search for a meaningful relationship.
Which is probably the most direct reference to the fact that people are getting sexual gratification out of this chair.
Yes. Well, there's one more.
Okay.
We'll get to Frazier. So Martin arrives. Frazier gets Daphne out of the chair. Daphne's upset because just like a man, now that you've had your fun, you don't care where I am. So Martin he comes in, he sees the chair, and Frazier's like, "Oh, it's your new easy chair," and he's like, "Oh, well, that's great. Where's my old chair?" And he says, "Oh, it's down in the storage space. Come on, try this one out." Martin, very reluctant. He doesn't even want to sit in it. He doesn't want to try it out. Frazier has to sort of coax him into doing it.
Right, and then he's like, "This isn't really me," and he's like, and here's the thing: Frazier was also similarly a little bit reluctant, and then Niles urged him into the chair, and then and Frazier ended up loving the chair, so he really wants Martin to try the chair. Martin takes a seat. Frazier turns it on. And Martin, in a moment of he reacts for a moment, and then he goes, "That's disgusting," which is
right to the shiatsu massage,
which is quite funny.
Right. Well, and it was pointed out that Martin's old chair, though his favorite chair, it does have a vibrating feature, but just not the same. I guess it's not as, I don't know, thorough.
I guess it doesn't. It's probably not as focused around like I don't like the taint and sphincter area or whatever people are getting out of this. It's very clearly not being done by the OG chair.
Right. So Frazier. So Martin doesn't want the chair. He thinks it's leather isn't really for him. It sticks to him. It gets hot. Frazier's like, okay, fine. You tried it for like 15 seconds, so now we'll get you your old chair back. He calls Leo in, and he asks him to bring the chair back up from the storage unit. Right. Leo says, "No can do."
Fish and chips.
Someone took it. Yeah, he was. He calls Daphne Fish and Chips.
Which I don't know if you know, that was actually another band that Phil Buckman was in. No can do. Fish and Chips.
So it turns out as Leo, the incompetent boob that he is, he instead of putting the chair in the storage unit, he puts it outside near like the dumpster, and someone comes by and takes it as soon as he does.
This person is waiting by the dumpster, and Leo was like, "I was going to take it, but there was already somebody at the dumpster, and they took it from me. They robbed me of your chair."
So, of course, Frazier, basically throws Leo out of the apartment. He says, "You got to find that chair. You got to comb through the entire neighborhood, whatever it takes. Just find my father's chair."
Right. We get into the next thing where Martin and Frazier have a little bit of a fight. Martin is accusing Frazier of like, "Oh, well, this is what you wanted, isn't it? Now you don't have to deal with my
this
chair.
Worked out perfectly for you."
Right. And then Frazier's like, "Well, I got you a new chair. You should be a little bit grateful." And then Martin's not super psyched about it. And then
he's talking about he talks about how the fact that the chair was the only thing that made him feel comfortable in this house, and Frazier's like, "Oh, baloney," which is just, I'm surprised to hear that kind of language coming from Frazier.
Foul indeed.
I've done everything I can to make you feel comfortable, but everybody knows Martin Crane doesn't like calfskin. He prefers duct tape. So at this point, Frazier takes out the roll of duct tape from earlier. He takes a big strip and he puts it on the chair, the Swedish chair. Right. He also dumps some food on it, some beer,
and he takes Martin's beer out of his hand and pours it on there, and then he grabs Eddie and sort of rubs the dog.
He doesn't rub it. He just sort of shakes Eddie over it.
Right. Yeah. To sort of get that same. So now there's no way Frazier can return this chair. He's out however much money the chair was.
Well, Daphne's already said that she wants to keep it in her room, so...
Okay. Yeah, so that's fine. That's all fine. At which point Martin Martin says, "I suppose you'll be throwing Eddie out by the dumpster next," which would be more accusatory and a little bit paranoid of Martin to accuse. If Frazier didn't already say the second Martin, if he were to kill Martin, he would also kill Eddie, which sort of makes that point very, very clear.
Right.
Let's see. And then Frazier says, I'll get you any chair you want. I don't know why we're talking about this broken down chair. And Martin lists all the things he's done in that chair. He's seen Neil Armstrong on the moon, and he's seen The Miracle on Ice, starring Kurt Russell. He saw the movie. He didn't see the event.
He didn't watch. He stayed in. He didn't watch the Olympics.
I saw Apollo 13, starring Tom Hanks, where he walks on the moon, and I saw Miracle on Ice, starring Kurt and,
Tom Hanks did walk on the moon in Apollo 13.
He did. I feel like maybe I'm thinking of the extended cut.
You definitely are.
I'm thinking of the long form, the long version. Anyway, he also, in a heartfelt, Martin reveals he was sitting in that chair when Frazier called him to let Martin know that he had a grandson that Frazier had, Freddie, and was a dad. He still falls asleep in it. His mother would come kiss him after he'd fallen asleep. He's
very attached to the chair.
He is. He's bummed out, and Frazier.
He's had a lot of sweet, tender moments in that chair.
And this sort of
never mind. It's only a chair.
Come on, Eddie. Come on. And then they leave, and Frazier sort of decides, okay, I've got to get the chair back.
Right. It's a very well delivered little monologue there, by Mr. John Mahoney.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's probably my favorite part of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So we get our next scene. Frazier, it's KACL. Frazier's entering the booth. Roz is there. Frazier's had a hellish weekend.
As another piece of evidence that this is a very tightly written episode, this is probably like the punchiest Roz and Roz gets right into her salacious story about having a date with a minister and not being sure if they're celibate. Never mind, she enjoys a challenge, just like joke, in a way that previous episodes have been a little bit more organic in terms of their back and forth. This one is much more like zip zap, snappy, Big Bang Theory, joke, laugh track.
Bazinga,
yeah. I don't know if you know, Bazinga is actually the name of a Phil Buckman band. That's how they got it for the show.
Big Bang tribute band, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
It's not even a band.
They only play Alan Parsons Project songs, but they call them the Jim Parsons Project, Bazinga.
So Frazier is doing his show, and as part of his show, he's using his radio program to get as a means of trying to locate his father's chair. He goes out, he puts out a message.
He's on the airwaves. He's like, hey, there's this split pea green, mud brown, striped recliner. It's got a spot. It's got some duct tape on it. If you find it, I'm willing to offer a handsome reward. Thank you so much. He's counting on the people of Seattle to come together and help him find this chair.
Really he's really hoping for like a really inspiring story of, people coming together and helping him locate a poor old man's chair. We time lapse a little bit, and we've discovered that people apparently just been calling him with prank calls.
Mm-hmm.
They've been saying it's on the Space Needle, it's in the governor's mansion. Someone thought it was a UFO from like a tacky planet.
Mm-hmm. Frazier goes to commercial for Yukon Lumber, and then he calls them ingrates, and he's been trying to help these people with their problems, and they're all trolling him. He doesn't use the term trolling; that wouldn't be invented until the internet. But he's angry that they've decided to play a goof. They're goofing on him.
Right.
But Roz finds the chair at hand. So somebody presumably calls in. She writes the message and then gives it to Frazier. Frazier knows exactly where to go for this chair. By tonight, his dad will be back in his beer-stained, flea-infested duct tape recliner, adjusting his shorts with one hand and cheering on Jean-Claude Van Damme in another. Yes, it's quite a little piece of heaven I've carved out for myself, isn't it?
What do you think Martin's favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie is?
Time Cop.
I mean, that's a good one.
Here's an interesting.
Not like Street Fighter.
Oh, he might like Street Fighter the movie. I don't know if he's an arcade. I don't know if he'd get as much out of it. I don't know if he's ever put the quarters in a.
Martin doesn't know that it's based on a video game. He just thought it was a movie that came out.
It is a very pro-America movie, but it's also about some random Dutchman fighting on behalf of the Americans. It's weird that Jean-Claude Van Damme frequently plays like a U.S. soldier, given that he's astoundingly Dutch.
Yes. But he's good at it. I mean, he can punch. That's all that matters.
Well,
really.
he can do the splits and he can punch someone in the balls. He's Belgian. Here I am calling. Well, I don't know. Let's see. Is it French pronunciation Van Damme, Dutch pronunciation Van Damme, Belgian. I don't. I'll be honest. I'm not sure the significance of Dutch.
I'm just learning that he's apparently going to be in the new Minions movie.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up now.
As a character named Jean-Claude.
I see. I'm finding this out. I'm sorry. Dutch refers to when you go on a date and you split the check.
Right.
So,
that's what it comes from.
That's where he's from. He's from a split check. So anyway, the next thing I did want to read. I didn't want to skip this. We're looking at this transcript from KLC780.net, which we plug it at the end of every episode. But again, one more credit to KLC780. Roz's tacky planet line is strangely prophetic. 8 years later, when the original chair is deliberately destroyed in a season 9 episode, the technical crew had a hard time finding the right material for the replacement they built until one of them spotted it on an old set from the original Star Trek.
Yeah, that's another. So even the chair has been in a Star Trek.
The chair itself has been in a Star Trek
series. That's God. It's so crazy how many connections, just little connections we've got to Star Trek.
That's the point of this podcast, I think, to some degree.
Pretty much.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so we introduced the next scene. It's a school play, is where the chair has somehow wound up. It's they're putting on the high school is putting on a performance of 10 Little Indians.
Yes.
Which is an actual stage play, but I don't think any of the dialogue that Frazier quotes is like actually in the play. But in any case, so there's Mrs. Warren, who is who's the director of this play. She's a teacher, and she is trying to organize this play. She's trying to be very positive with all of the chaos that's going around her. And here walks in Frazier, this random guy, and he's trying to steal one of the set pieces. So
he's trying to walk it, and I will credit Frazier in this way, is that he is not trying to steal this couch. He is trying to walk up to the adult here, the drama teacher, Mrs.
Warren,
who is played, of course, by Valerie Curtin, and he is trying to get her attention, be like, hey, FYI, I'm going to take that. He's not trying to surreptitiously sneak this thing off. He does try to get permission, but sort of insistently. He's like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to get this out of your way. I'm going to take this chair because it's my chair.
Right, but he can't really talk to Mrs. Warren because she's focused on so many other things. She keeps having other students walk up to her with various problems. One of these students is I think it's accidental, but they're basically our next special guest, a very young Brittany Murphy appears.
Rest in peace, Brittany Murphy, a fantastic actress, Brittany Murphy.
Known for, of course, Clueless. She was a reoccurring character on King of the Hill. Very talented actress, and unfortunately, she is no longer with us.
She was Luann on King of the Hill. She was Tank on Pepper Ann. She was of course, I believe, Eminem's love interest in 8 Mile. Many very fun parts that she played, and it's a bummer that she passed away so young.
This is probably this is kind of one of her earliest roles. It looks like, according to her IMDb page. So yeah, that's just a nice little bonus we got here. So Frazier, he's trying to get Miss Warren's attention, but Warren doesn't have time for him because she's trying to put on a very shaky production of 10 Little Indians. Frazier's like, oh, 10 Little Indians, I thought I recognized the mise en scène. I did this play years ago. And then he proceeds to quote a line which isn't in the play.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's very Frasier, though. That's, yeah.
Just to completely make something up on the spot? I don't, where did he get this from?
I don't know. I will say, that, 10 Little Indians, as we're talking about, it is a real piece of fiction. You might know it better as Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which is one of the more famous mystery novels of all time, about a group of people in a house getting picked off one by one. An interesting thing for a high school play. It is interesting that they chose the name 10 Little Indians, since that was only the name of the story in brief adaptations between 1964 and 1986, at which point, around 1986, the title was changed to And Then There Were None. The reason that before 1964, the book was called a title that includes a slur based on a song from the United Kingdom, sort of minstrel song. So there's just an interesting bit of trivia. So if you're listening, what is 10 Little? You might know it more as And Then There Were None, which is a very famous Agatha Christie novel, possibly. I think
why did they not? Why did they decide to go with that with 10 Little Indians?
Great question. Fantastic question. I'm not 100% sure.
All right. Well, so Frazier, he introduces himself. Miss Warren has no idea who he is. He tries to. He's from KSL Talk Radio. Listen, he's just there to get the chair. He's gonna go and he's gonna get it out of there. Miss Warren stops him because currently that chair is the most entertaining thing on stage, because again, all these kids can't remember their lines and they're terrible.
Right. There have been standing ovations for this chair alone. He's not taking the chair.
The chair is being offered roles on Broadway.
The chair is the only thing in the show that has credits. He's been seen multiple times on episodes of Law and Order SVU.
And Star Trek.
He's been both evidence and a murder weapon in SVU. So there's not a world where you're taking the chair, Frazier. Right.
So Warren, yeah, she's sick of being positive, and Warren is not letting Frazier take this chair. And she lists all the various reasons why she's upset. The leading man who voiced his change precisely 3 o'clock this afternoon. My name's spelled wrong in the program. The sets are falling apart. It's just a very, very stressful situation. Frazier offers her money, but Warren's like, forget it. Frazier then launches into a very sort of, passionate speech about how, this chair represents his the only chance of forging a meaningful relationship with his father, and he must get it back because he's thoughtlessly discarded it. And Warren, she hears this and is like, listen, people, you hear that? You can learn a lot from this man. That speech he just gave is a perfect example of the kind of hammy overacting I don't want to see out of any of you for this entire run.
I thought this would be a compliment, but you're insulting me to my face while I'm trying to get my dad's chair back. Darn it.
All right. At this point, Joey runs up to Miss Warren. Apparently, Bobby McDuff has thrown up backstage. And Miss Warren just says, oh, it must be opening night jitters. Joey's like, no, it's not jitters, it's stomach flu. He's at the nurse's office. So Frazier is like, oh, well, you can't do the show now because your actor is sick, so I'll just be taking my share now.
He's an integral part of the. You can't do it without this character.
Dr.
I would
Armstrong.
know. I've played the character.
Right. So Warren, she gets kind of this gleam in her eye.
Devious look in her eye.
Right. So she's like, how badly do you want this chair? Mm-hmm. Frasier's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be in your play. Mm-hmm. Miss Warren, she rips a piece of duct tape off of the chair as if to say, it's like, oh, it'd be a real shame if something happened to this chair. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Frasier's like, oh, I can't even remember any of the lines. And Warren's like, then you'll fit right in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And we cut very quickly through the play to the end of the play where Frazier and the children are receiving a standing ovation, and Mrs. Warren proceeds to hand Frazier a bouquet of flowers for a job well done, which is sort of a usual, and it's an interesting thing. An episode of Frasier will usually work itself right up to the crux of a dilemma. Like most other sitcoms would be like, oh man, how's he going to get through this play? But we're just left to assume Frasier's competent enough to nail it. He's worked himself into an awkward situation, but he just succeeds, and that's sort of the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how the episode ends. He did a great job. He got the chair back. All is right with the world. The status quo has been restored. That's how it goes on a sitcom.
And of course in the little after credits bit, as we listen to Kelsey Grammer do some jazz, he wants to sit down in the chair. He has a little blanket, puts it on the chair. As he's going to grab his reading material, Martin comes in, throws the blanket off the chair, sits down in the chair, and before Frasier can take a seat on the couch, Eddie sits on the blanket, and Frasier has to go sit at his table off in the distance, and all is right with the world again.
Right. So we never really find out what happens to the chair that Frasier bought.
No. Presumably, I mean, if we're left to assume what I think is either Daphne took it and it's in her room, or Niles bought an apartment, as he said he would.
He bought an apartment for the chair, and he's going to visit
cheat on Maris with this chair, with this sexually gratifying chair, as is implied, not implied, it's directly stated by multiple characters that they want this chair for their nefarious physical needs. So,
oh God, I hope that siren isn't getting picked up in the audio. That is going to be the episode. Give him the chair. Any thoughts? Any closing remarks? I think this is probably my favorite. As I said earlier, this is probably my favorite. One of my favorite episodes of this season.
As a side comment, before I go into my thoughts, I do want to say one thing we do a good job citing. I do want to say Valerie Curtin was nominated for an Oscar. I don't know if. I guess we've also had Malcolm McDowell and like Elijah Wood, so we've had other. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I didn't know Valerie Curtin is an actress before, and she's got some stuff. I think this was a fun episode. It was very, very bitsy, very jokey, as I said. The laughs came very quickly. It also had one of those things I'm very complimentary of in terms of television writing. It was tropier than what we've seen in the past. The whole the two characters get into a compromising situation, and then a third character walks in at the worst possible. It's very sitcom-y, but it's fun because it works, and you could. And I would like to think. I hope that it seems like the kind of thing that the live audience enjoyed, and I hope they weren't. I get the vibe that the live audience is, at least to some degree, genuinely enjoying what's going on in a way that they aren't being directed too much, because it doesn't sound too much like a laugh track. It sounds a little bit more organic and fun than that. But it was just a tight, well-written episode. I think everybody got a good handful of quips. It was well-written more than anything.
And I think that scene with Martin and him just sort of explaining what the chair means to him, I think that's probably one of just Martin's all-time best moments. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a really great monologue.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our next episode. That was, I think we've only got 4 more episodes this season.
This was season 1, episode 19. So we've got, I think you're 4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
We're nearing the end of the station, the season 1 train station.
Right. We got our next episode, 40-something. Frazier becomes suddenly aware of his age and is so is not sure how to react when a young woman asks him out. So apparently Frazier has another dilemma involving, dating a woman. He's not sure if he should date this woman because she is significantly younger than him.
Right.
So that'll be something, won't it?
That sounds. I can't say that's nothing. That does sound like something.
All right. Well, that's gonna about do it for the Frazier on Frazier podcast, Wes. Do you have anything to plug or anything?
Let's see. Wednesday, September 16th, 2020, is my personal favorite Phil Buckman band. He put out some real hits under the band name Wednesday, September 16th, 2020. It was a band of his in the 80s, so I don't know why he chose that date, but I thought it was relevant to now, so I figured...
He's very ahead of his time.
Very ahead of his time. But within the next 8 days of this... we're recording this on the 9th, so in 8 days, he'll be behind the time. And by the time you're listening to it, it'll be behind the time. But in this moment in time, and when he did it, very ahead of his time.
All right. Well, good night, everybody.
Later.
The Frazier on Frazier podcast wishes to thank KACL780.net for providing episode transcripts and Ronald O'Connell for providing our theme song, Frazier MIDI.